I'm going to be very quick. Well, thank you all for being present here in the Chamber of Architects or Order of Architects, as you prefer. This is the north section of the Chamber of Architects. Well, thank you also to the institutions that organize this, namely the School of ESAP, the laboratory, the research lab, and also the collaboration with Porto University. And of course, a special word to the keynote speakers today for the interest of the theme. Very, very briefly, I would say that our institution is very concerned about these themes. They are not easy, and they are not even in the search of interest, in the scope of interest of everybody. They are complex for some and very simple for others. The necessity of understanding the complexity of our profession is also important. Formal methods is something that we have to face. And we have to face and not to turn, like walk sideways or turn away or be afraid of. We have to face it because it's present in our near future, is present in nowadays, and also is something that we have to go towards the necessities of the service of the profession. That is important not only for architects, but to the public interest, which is important. And namely, we have to be the speakers in some terms of the necessity of that transdisciplinarity and the advantage of the new methodologies, innovation, new tools. The idea of tool is important, and the discussion about being tool, being cooperative, and being part of our work. So thank you for being in Porto, for all the ones that come from outside. And thank you for having this wonderful symposium. Thank you for those who organize. I hope you can enjoy the rest of the part of the city. There is also a formal method to explain how this city has a city center located 6 kilometers from the seaside. Is not casual, is not out of nonsense, out of nothing. It's not nonsense. There is a reason why the city has developed in the south part of the river, of the Douro River, and there's also explaining reasons for its morphology, which is a word that is important today, the morphology of the city and the way it has developed since so many centuries ago. I'm not sure if in terms of the urban planning, not to Matosinhos, but of the urban metropolis, some formal methods are being applied as they should. That is my doubt. And maybe I think there is a lack of architects and architecture in that definition of not only the urban form, but also the territory, the design of the territory. That is a concern that is ours. My main concern, for instance, the regional plan, the team of the regional plan doesn't have an architect. The regional plan north, the region north, which is quite big, doesn't have an architect with a very defined responsibility in designing that regional plan. And that is a problem that we have being architects, and sometimes we run away from our responsibility. So, or at least we don't claim for our role in these demands. So thank you very much for the learning and the knowledge that you brought today to our house, and hope to see you soon one of these days, and so hope to see you again. And thank you very much. So.
No, it's not over. I have to thank you all again, but in the name of all the shares of the symposium. And I need to thank specifically to each person. So first I want to thank those who have been working for so many months with us to make this event possible. And in the first place, of course, I'd like to thank our co-hosts and our hosts and co-organizers, the Order of Architects and the North Regional Section. And we found shared objectives in connecting academic research and architectural practice as well. And I want to thank you as well for the continuous support and dedication that you've shown to us throughout the last year. So, and Sophia in particular, thank you so much. You have contributed more than it's possible to say to this event. And also, Joanna, thank you so much for this last few days, and everyone else here in this house who has been helping for this last week. Then, of course, I also want to take this opportunity to thank the keynote speakers again for accepting our invitation to bring us their work, but also because they were invaluable contributors to the discussion, both within the sessions and outside the sessions. Another two people who deserve special thanks are Franklin and David for starting this whole thing 13 years ago. They have been working tirelessly on it for 7 editions. They're responsible for the way it has grown so far, not only as an event, but also as a network of people from different backgrounds, geographies, fields, and disciplines. We've seen mentorships and partnerships form in this symposium, as well as long-lasting relationships, both personal and professional, based on common interests and goals. And it really makes me happy to see some of you that are here for the second or the third, or Tassos, I don't even know anymore about how many times you've been here, and to think that I may see you again in 2 years. And of course, I want to thank everyone else who is here for the first time. Everyone has contributed so much with their research and the discussion that we've been having these last few days. And I really hope that we'll see you in 2026. So the objective of this edition of the Formal Methods in Architecture Symposium was to explore the connection, or sometimes lack of thereof, between scientific research and architectural practice. It was exciting to have this opportunity to team up with the Order of Architects to examine why this gap exists and try to bridge it a little by bringing our research and methods to the attention of architect practitioners. Maybe we weren't as successful as we would have liked in bringing and joining architects and researchers to speak with each other, but we did have a little taste of what it could be like. And we've seen research that is deeply connected to practice, and practice that is deeply connected to research. The benefits of its applicability were made painfully evident in many presentations, and I can say painfully very literally, thinking, for example, of the presentation that we had this morning about the floods in Porto Alegre in Brazil. And we've seen also a very important research on development of materials and construction methods to improve construction efficiency and building sustainability, which is addressing very, very urgent questions. We've also seen people researching about this gap between practice and research, which is in itself very interesting, how they've used the scientific method to understand how to better connect scientific knowledge and design. And several participants have brought experiences in education that might already be contributing to creating a new generation of highly qualified architects. We're also conscious of and curious about the potential of these new tools and methodologies arising from academia. And from all of this, there was a central question that we've seen arrive in many instances, that goes beyond the complicated relationship between research and practice, but is also connected to it. That has to do with how much control do we as researchers or practitioners really have. Both these areas of architecture are deeply affected by economical, political, and social constraints. And as Franklin has pointed out yesterday, and David has pointed out that Franklin pointed out yesterday, Researchers, architects, and urbanists decide only to a very limited extent how cities are designed. Its economical forces, namely real estate, holds most decision power. Nevertheless, as an that was a really awful word you used, incorrigible, evidence-based optimist, Franklin told us to keep going. And he spoke of the capacity of technological advancement to instigate social change when contradictions within the mode of production become too deep. David, drawing from his own experience in between research and practice, emphasized the role of land property and urban policies, as well as of short political circles that are incompatible with long-term structural solutions. And we've seen this at play in the example of Matosinhos, both in your presentation and your presentation in the first day, the first presentation of the first day, where economic and bureaucratic hurdles stood between research results and practical action. So the short timelines to respond to problems led to an extremely short timeline to conduct proper analysis. And then related to this, but on another front, during lunch break, some of us have discussed how the precariousness of researchers and research centers also leads to a focus on short-term responses instead of long-term strategic research. So that leads me to another question that was very central during the symposium. In cases where the connection between research outputs and practice was not evident, many presenters were asked a variation of this question. So how can your research be applied to solve practical questions? How can it be used by architects or urban designers? And it seems that this was because of our intention to focus on the relation between scientific advances and design practices, that it can be understood as assigning primacy to applied research. But does all research have to be immediately applicable in order to be useful to design practice? And I believe that the response has clearly been negative. Some of the non-immediately applicable research that we have seen was connected to generative algorithms. As Franklin said earlier today, more than 20% of the abstract submissions that we've received for this edition of the symposium explored LLMs, GANs, or other forms of AI, which is a much larger proportion than in other years. And these tools make it possible to get a hold of and manipulate a large amount of data. This means we can add more and more complexity to our models, complexity that we're just talking about seeks to represent reality. But something else has been discussed, and is what extent do we need this complexity? Do we need to know all the facts? As focusing on knowing all the facts led us down a path where we now risk losing touch with theory and consequently forgo our understanding of how things work and why things work. Both Nabil and Joaquin touched on this. I heard all of us heard Nabil say at least 10 times that first of all, we need to know what our research question is or our problem is when we're designers. Only then can we know what data we need and what we need to do with it. Joaquin used that analogy of the cooking robot that needs, first of all, a recipe. And the recipe is we have to know what dish we want to make so that we can figure out what ingredients we need and how we can use them. And this takes me to a thought that I shared with Wassim Jabi, and he thought I was being incredibly simplistic, and I was, but I'm still going to repeat it because it really comes out of a place of excitement. And also he isn't here anymore, so I think I'm fine. So he showed us a design process that starts from a design intention, which is in the examples that he used, that intention was often social. And back when I was studying architecture, I was taught that architectural design starts with the grand artistic gesture. Everything else that happens in that design is just a consequence of this initially largely objectual intent. So what I saw him propose, even though he might not agree that it's what he proposed, was a design that started from those consequences, from the way we want people to live in space, from how sustainable and healthy and sociability inducing we want the spaces that we design to be. And then we click a button and the grand gesture appears. And of course, I did hear Meta's side here about it being both fully art and fully science, but that was, I'll keep to my simplicity for this moment. Following this idea of intentionality, I want to bring back Meta's questions to Tassa's in the same questions, where what's really stood out that it is not for intentionality. Intentionality needs knowledge. It's not enough to find an algorithm that can actually that can predict human behavior in space. We must always understand why that algorithm works. And then, while I understand and agree with Franklin's assessment that God is also in the details, or that global features can be found in its local parts, I object to the analogy, because God is by definition something that is always beyond the grasp of human understanding. And the importance of human understanding is what stood out to me from both of today's keynote speakers. With the growth of black box types of AI, it seems that it is more urgent than ever to make non-explicit knowledge explicit. We must be able to state goals and intentions and understand why and how certain results are produced. So on the first day of the symposium, Pinto Duarte told us that we need to understand what we can build to know what we can design. And now on the last day, I think we can say that we need to understand so that we can design. I and all the shares, we really hope that you have enjoyed being here, that you are taking something new with you for your research and practice, and that we'll see you again in 2 years. And before I let you go, I have to remind you that those of you who want to join us tomorrow for the tours, we promise they won't end at 9 p.m. And we are meeting in the Museum of House at 10 o'clock, I think. That's right. Yeah. So thank you, and see you tomorrow or in 2 years.
And thank you, Catarina.